Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, and we appreciate your company. It's happy birthday to one of the most transformative constitutions ever written, Katiba 2010. It's 15 years since its promulgation on a day like this. Samson Omondi is the Assistant Director at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and Honorable Karoli Omondi is the Chairperson of the Constitution Oversight Implementation Committee, Ahmed Hashi Governance and Political Commentator, Nelson Havi, ex-Law Society of Kenya President and an advocate of the High Court. Yes, Ahmed, your hand was up before you go to something.
It's not Montesquieu who is the father of constitutional law. It's Ibn Haytham. He took what Ibn Haytham wrote and decided to call it his own, just as much as Isaac Newton did. I think that what we're talking about is that in a constitution, it's the people's power expressed or writ large. And I think that we always ought to err on the side of the people when it comes to things like constitutional law or what the Constitution says about the institutions of our charter. And I agree with my learned friend on the right about the character of the Supreme Court today, but not the spirit of the Supreme Court. I think we need a Supreme Court because at the end of the day, we need a place where we can go and get a decision and people can move on with life and move on with the affairs of the state. Without a Supreme Court, even though there are very powerful arguments against it, the Supreme Court is like a National Assembly. Once it passes something, the whole country accepts and moves on. Otherwise, conflict will continue. So I think it's important for us to have the Supreme Court. It's an important character of our judicial system. On the fact that the judicial officers are not playing cricket the way they should be played, I think I agree. And I think that that's evident to see. The Chief Justice is smiling through that job. And I think that we ought to change her quickly and as fast as possible, including the bench. Some of them are retiring. We need robust new lawyers with the experience to come into the Supreme Court to write law, because in a developing country like that, we need a judicial activism. We don't need a staid, conservative, British upper lip system of judicial system. So that's on that. And on the Senate, and Mr. Karoli, just after the break, shows telling me that I'm misinforming Kenyans. No, I'm not misinforming Kenyans on the issue of the Senate. I'm just, he's my very good friend. I'm just saying that, you know, it is, you see, this Constitution is not a Bible or a Quran. It is written by men and women. And it is an experiment. The most important thing about a Constitution is an experiment. Okay. And when an experiment doesn't work inside the Constitution, right, it is our responsibility to change it. The American Constitution, for example, which we're using as a mirror, has been changed so many times because of the circumstances of the political and economic situation of the country. Lastly, the Constitution is, in every world, in history, is elite-driven. And one of the things that we cannot have for breakfast or lunch or dinner is the Constitution. If a Constitution is not part and parcel of a country's economic wherewithal to make their citizens happy, to have prosperity, and to have statecraft that works, then the Constitution becomes a pact, an elite pact, and not something that the people enjoy in their daily lives. The pursuit, the United States says that we, the people, properly assembled, or who want to pursue happiness. What is this happiness they want to pursue? It's economic prosperity. It is capitalism. It is liberal, democratic capitalism. Our document is a liberal, democratic constitution. And therefore, it is very important to me that liberal capitalism under it, which is the girth of the constitution, is prosperity. And our government today, you know, Ayub, has nothing to do with prosperity. Our economy basically collapsed. We've got a lot of problems.
We'll talk about that because Parliament is a critical guardrail in our constitutional architecture. Yes, Sam.
Two things, Ayub, that I wanted to make reference to what Honorable Karoli was saying. And I want to make reference to the culture of constitutionalism. I think the audit of the Constitution is important.
Yes, that's true.
But an audit without having the culture will not make any sense to us. Let me make reference first to Article 37 of the Constitution, particularly on the right to demonstrate, picket, and assemble. I mean, the Constitution is very clear on that. Now, when you go to the National Police Service Act, The 6th schedule provides on use of force and firearms, as well as remedies that should be provided. Then, of course, we have the Public Order Act. I mean, these are very clear. And if we are to follow what is provided for in the National Police Service Act, if we are supposed to follow what is provided for in the Public Order Act, some of these instances that we are seeing would not be happening. So again, the culture of constitutionalism and ensuring that the police do what is required. Independent Policing Oversight Authority do what is required. IAU do what is required. So if these institutions would do what is required, then, I mean, the audit would not make sense. I think the second thing that I wanted to make reference to, the tussle between the National Police Service and the National Police Service Commission. The National Police Service Commission Act is very clear that the IG is a member of the National Police Service Commission. And the National Police Service Commission is the employer of the National Police Service. And I mean, for all intent and purpose, it is the employer that handles the payroll. So, I mean, what we are dealing with are really people that do not believe in the Constitution, but also a lot of individual interests. I mean, if you ask yourself, the IG has independent command over the National Police Service on matters of operations, not matters of dealing with finances. And in any case, the IG sits in the National Police Service Commission. So what are we looking at? We are really looking at controlling of resources, not looking at whether these things, what they mean for the independence of the institutions, but also what that means for promotion and protection of human rights of Kenyans, which is really the concern. Yeah. So we must believe in the culture. We must have people that believe in this culture, and we must follow what is required.
Yeah, and Council Harvey, one other gain that was made out of this dispensation was the limitations on the presidency. I mean, although he remains or wills whoever occupies State House significant political power under Katiba, ideally there are checks and balances, is it? And this throws in the question of Parliament with immense powers. How has its performance been?
Structured, the Kenyan Constitution has the most elaborate limitations on the powers of the president. So elaborate that it even dwarfs the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Connivingly, presidents in Kenya, subsequent to President Mwai Kibaki, have found ways to dominate, to ensure that, notwithstanding the limitation of their powers under the Constitution, they still behave in a presidential, imperial way as before. How have they done it? They have captured Parliament. As soon as an election is done, the election of speakers of the Senate and the National Assemblies are not done on the floor of the House. They are done
with the political parties.
No, they're done at
State House.
Yeah. Post Mwai Kibaki, they're done at State House. That is why we cannot have a formidable Speaker of Parliament as Kenneth Otiato Marende, simply put. So having captured Parliament through the Speaker, you again capture Parliament through the committees. Okay? All the important committees are taken by the president. Let's not mince word, by the president. The president will be calling them and telling them what to do. You understand? And then over and above that, if things get out of control, give every member of Parliament 20, they're bribed for as cheap as 20,000 shillings.
Wow.
If the stakes are high, for instance, if it is impeaching regarding Gachagua, we may go as high as 200. You understand? Buy them outright. You get it? So with that, Parliament cannot oversight you. You originate the finance bill, Parliament will be commanded to pass it. You understand? You originate the finance, the housing levy, Parliament will be commanded to pass it. You understand? So you're done with Parliament. The next threat, which is about to contain your power as president, is what? Is the judiciary. You start with the Judicial Service Commission. And post Mwai Kibaki, State House has controlled the composition of the Judicial Service Commission, from the elected members to the appointed members. You understand? So you have a pliable Judicial Service Commission. Then you dictate the Judicial Service Commission to appoint whoever was number 5 as a candidate for Chief Justice to be Chief Justice. Now, you have a Chief Justice who knows that she is in office and she didn't deserve to be in office, okay? Then you get that Judicial Service Commission with an incompetent Chief Justice to appoint judges who are not only incompetent but are also corrupt. You understand? Now, what was intended to be the circumspection of your power as president has come to naught, because you have parliament, you have the judiciary. That is where we have the problem. And then you go to the independent commissions. Okay. Judicial Service Commission was one of them. The other most fundamental independent commission is supposed to be the IBC. Do I need to say more in elaboration, as I've said before? Copy and paste and put it there. You understand?
So in a nutshell, you have perfectly described state capture.
Yes. Can I just add a little point to it? I think
because
it's very right. Just a little point.
Yes.
And Mr. Karoli is here with me. He'll bear me out. In 2007, when we were going to elect the speaker and the deputy speaker, Marende was in a legal committee with Karoli here at Orange House. When we went to Naivasha, there were two people who wanted to put a speaker. One was Shikuku, the other one was Marende. So it just 90% of it came down on Marende because of his legal qualifications. They are, of course, I take the point that the State House and the President has got a lot to do with electing all these people. But in the experience that I've had in the political party that I used to belong to, we went and democratically elected the speakers, the deputy speakers. We even knew who the cabinet ministers were going to be. We even knew what jobs we were going to do. And then when we went to negotiate with Kibaki, you remember it was Mr. Marende, the National Assembly voted, and he became the speaker, and Farah Maalim became the deputy speaker. So it is true that on the main, that it's the president who does this or State House that does it. But in the political experience that I've had, okay. Mr. Karoli will bear me out and Mr. Marende will bear me out that they were democratically elected in the party levels. That's how they got to be speaker.
Yeah, Ayub, let me just, before I get to this issue of capture of parliament, let me just inform the public that in auditing the Constitution, we will pay a lot of attention to what informed the provisions that we have. Mm-hmm. Like on the 2/3 gender rule, you remember there was a sunset clause. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to have the 47 women reps for only 20 years. Mm-hmm. And that sunset clause, truth be told,
2032.
Was actually removed. Yeah. We still don't know who removed it, but it was removed at night at the government printer when the Constitution was being printed. That's the truth.
Shocking.
And actually, the reason why there was a sunset clause was that the 47 women would have a platform not to be permanent women reps, but to make the transitions. They would be in office for a while, get their political strength, and then get elected. Just like Honorable Millie Odhiambo, though she came as nominated, Lesuda Naisula.
Then she went in, yeah.
Yes, Wangari of Gilgil. We have a lot of women who started as nominated, but have graduated. So those are the kind of things we will look at, so that we deal with this kind of issues. But now, going to capture of parliament, the blame is not even with the president. The blame is with our political parties. This is the weakest link in our governance. If you look at our political parties today, what are they? They have not midwifed quality leadership. And I challenge anybody to look at your MP today and the MP you had 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Who do you think is most qualified? Who do you think is most knowledgeable? Our political parties have become mercantilist. What do? They are specialized in elite compromises to advance short-term political interests. What is happening today, political parties, look at the Political Parties Act that they have enacted. Do you know how much money is due to go to political parties every year? Yeah. It comes to about 4 or 5 billion. Okay. Why do you give political parties 4 or 5 billion a year when university students don't have enough funding for their education, when there is no election? Political funding is for election. Elections come every 5 years. They don't come every year. And to make matters worse, they made sure there is no law on political expenses. So there's no basis on which you can calculate what you're giving them. They've just come with a formula.
The question of campaign financing.
Yeah. Yes, because public funding to political parties is for purposes of elections. So that
Karoli Omondi should be re-elected unopposed. The people of Suba, please listen and listen carefully.
And then, to make matters worse, what have they done as political parties? If you look at the political parties, forming a political party has been made very difficult. You must be present in 24 counties. You must have offices in 24 counties. Those are barriers to stop competition. Those are barriers to stop competition. So the problem we have with our governance and why Parliament is weak are political parties. I've been elected chair by members of Constitutional Oversight Committee, not through recommendation of ODM. In fact, once we resume in September, there's going to be a controversy about my position. I'm very sure, because it is the members who elected me. It was not a decision of any political parties. The members ordered me to leave Homa Bay during the devolution conference, come to Nairobi and be elected so that we do proper work in this committee. And I'm telling you, as soon as we resume on 22nd, you'll hear controversy about this because of our political parties. If you look at our standing orders, there's something called liaison committees. Members are supposed to apply for positions in committees and be interviewed. And I've told our members, parties cannot order you around in Parliament into which committees you belong. That's why we have a liaison committee. But we have a situation where political parties sit and draw a list, and if they don't like you, they remove you from that committee, or they send you to committees they perceive as not lucrative or not. This is the problem we have in this country. Our political parties, we must now make a lot of changes. Why are they not funding independent candidates? Why have they made the law? The Constitution, our article says, Kenya is a I think it's Article 3. Kenya is a multi-party. Multi-party is not many parties. Multi-party means many pathways to elective office. You can run as an independent, you can belong to a political party, and as I've always said, individuals are the ones who are elected in Kenya, not political parties. There's no political party that is elected in this country. True. You are saying MCAs can oversight governors. MCAs cannot have the capacity to oversight governors when the governors tell them, if you challenge me, you will not get party nomination in the next election. That is what the reality of our political parties. Okay. So this is a weak link. We need to deal with it, and deal with it very heavily. Yeah,
and Samson, adherence to the rule of law has been a rather problematic pathway, is it? Given statements made against the courts, starting off with the nullification of the presidential election by David Kinani Maraga's Supreme Court, to recently what President Kenyatta's successor, Dr. William Ruto, had said in 2024 about the judiciary.
I mean, adherence to the court, to the rule of law, I think has been one of our greatest problems with the current leadership. I think we've seen what we've never seen in the past, particularly on disobedience of court orders. And we are in a state where, and I think courts have said that court orders need to be respected if we want to be a people that respect the rule of law. And that court orders are not just mere directives. They provide pathways to what we want as a people. Because courts are normally our last point where people go for redress. And when you reach a point where you go to a place where you need recess and court orders are not respected, then you are truly getting to the path of anarchy. And the respect of court orders does not just, it's not just with the presidency, but we've seen presidency do it. We've seen other civil servants do it. And I think we are in a state where if we continue disrespecting court orders, if we continue disrespecting the rule of law, then the essence of having the Constitution, I think, does not really make sense. That is why we have police that would kill at will because they know nothing would happen to them. Whether IPOA makes recommendations, whether Internal Affairs makes recommendations, nothing would happen to them. So issues of disobedience of court orders, I think, is something that we really need to have a conversation on as a country, especially so that we have a political will. Because one of the greatest problems is the issue of political will when it comes to respecting these court orders, because people know that they are going to be protected, especially at the highest level.
Yeah, and but the language hasn't been healthy, is it, Council Harvey? And if we have to reflect on some of the rulings by the levels, different levels of the judiciary, and in spite of the complaints and reservations you have about the judiciary and the Supreme Court in particular, there has been an exogenous pressure on the part of the executive, is it? And at times very unhealthy, considering the remarks.
Yes, appropriately so, because you see, when you're dealing with the executive, the challenge will always be one of violation of the Bill of Rights or contravention of the Constitution. And the least corrupt judges are the ones who serve in the constitutional division. Because the executive will not bring money to a judge. He won't. The most they will do is to coerce you or look for evidence of something you did a few years ago and say, look, if you don't do this, we'll do this. So corruption is almost negligible in the constitutional division of the High Court. That is why you will always see these bold decisions being made by Mugambe, Chacha Mwita, and Bahati Mwamuye. You understand? Often, they may be blackmailed and they'll give a decision that does not suit the need to uphold the Constitution. But this is always rare. You understand? Corruption permeates in the commercial division of the High Court, in the Environment and Land Division of the High Court. And this corruption is privatized. It's not from the government. I don't know whether we are getting the dichotomy. And that is the reason why we are making this call for reform in the judiciary and reform in the Judicial Service Commission. Because opportunistic entrepreneurs in the justice sector have purchased the judiciary. They have purchased the Judicial Service Commission. You see, today, I will be making an application to set aside an order made by a judge in Kiambu who has decided to stay the execution of a decree by a judge made here in Nairobi. Who does that? And you see, this judge is the one who is facing numerous petitions before the Judicial Service Commission. But they know they will collect as much money as they need, between 30 million to 50 million. So as and when they are placed before the Judicial Service Commission, they just need to take a small percentage of what they have collected, give to the committee of 3, or if it's the entire commission that is sitting, each one 1 million, and they'll be done with. This is the problem. And it's so close a problem to us that it must be countermanded. Because if it's not countermanded, we will lose the judiciary. We're about to lose it. Okay. And is that threat, Ahmed, imminent and on the horizon, given that you have talked about Parliament and the admission here made by the lawmaker who serves at the National Assembly? Of course, there's no broad brush painting. The judiciary, as you have heard. What then does that mean for our democracy, Ahmed?
Well, I think Harvey is posing a philosophical question about jurisprudence and whether or not the Constitution as we have it is curing the things that are ailing us. I've always argued for a parliamentary system of government in which the executive is in the House, and it is easier to check power in a National Assembly or Parliament other than this system that we have put separation between the 3 pillars of our government. I firmly believe that the old parliamentary system of government in which we had, and Mr. Karoli was just speaking about the qualitative difference between 20 years ago or 30 years ago when we had 212 MPs in that house and they would sway the ship of state by the arguments on the floor. I remember when I was much younger, I remember the parliamentarians would come and speak in that house and you'd be mesmerized at the quality of our parliamentarians. How about today? They can't swear in English or in Kiswahili. Some have written for what to write in a visitor's book. Bizarre. You know, it's not funny. It's bizarre. And they'll not read it properly.
They've come through political parties.
And, you know, I think that one of the biggest problems we have is Mr. Ruto, Mr. Odinga, and Mr. Kenyatta. And I have some experience with this, and I don't have to say everything in public. But, you know, they sit somewhere, and they actually write down the people who are going to... I participated in one, in which our captain would sit at the top, and we would call out the names, and they would tick it. Yes, no, yes, based on the loyalty to the party. And I was one of the most loyal members of this party, and I won the nomination for Langati in 2012. But the party insisted upon me to give it to someone else. And I stayed with the party. Now, this, Mr. Karoli is absolutely right. The problem, we have a problem in the political parties. And the political parties have the cult of personality. Mr. Kenyatta said this, it'll happen. Mr. Odinga said this, it'll happen. Because he's the one who's going to go and mobilize the ethnic barracks in the country. So I think that if we change it into a parliamentary system of government, and where you have very senior people and very educated people and very adroit people and very articulate people and men and women of conscience, this is very important, to come into the National Assembly and say, we're not going to let the executive and the judiciary go through this process, because the National Assembly is at the heart, I mean the Parliament, is at the very heart of the question of liberty in a country. It's at the very core. Schumpeter, an old political philosopher, described it as the very soul of a democracy. If Parliament is not leading the debate and not making the laws and not oversighting the republic, then dictatorships are the ones that emerge. For an example, today we have a president who can do whatever he wants. He can even accuse the same National Assembly or the same Parliament of stealing. You know, you have looked at his cabinet.
Extortion.
Some of them were named in the Parliament as being drug dealers. It's not me, that's in the public record. You remember the time of Mrs. Saitoti? There are members, there are cabinet members who were named. Mr. Ruto has no authority to speak about corruption. I mean, he's been in the dock many, many, many times. If you Google Ruto with images in the Google, you'll see him in the dock many, many times. So I think that this question of moral prejudice and this moral sort of ascendancy about the president saying that the National Assembly, we know the National Assembly, the Parliament is corrupt, we know it. Why is it corrupt? Because this rural idiocy that has invaded the Assembly, and therefore they don't care if Mr. Sudi is in the National Assembly. God help this country.
Well, he would argue it's a byproduct of a democracy.
You see, a democracy produced the French Revolution, but it also produced Napoleon Bonaparte, probably one of the greatest leaders of history. So we have to be very careful. Adolf Hitler was elected to be Chancellor of Germany. He burnt down the parliament and suspended the constitution. You can go through a parliamentary democracy and become the leader, but that's no guarantee that liberty is free. That is no guarantee that democracy is going to remain. We have to be very, very vigilant. And it is the civic duty of the people who know one or two things about history to stand up and say, we're not going to allow this kind of nonsense to invade the republic, and we're going to go and stand. My friend is going to stand, I'm going to stand, and we hope the people elect us in Langata and in Westland so that we can go there and oppose Sudi.
Or debate him.
Or debate him, oppose him in every way.
In Swahili
or in English.
Well, it's not about Sudi, so
no, it's not. I'm just using, just using it as
a visible example.
I think you need to invite him next year.
Yeah, he will not
Well,
come.
he hasn't been on any media for studio interviews for some time now. I haven't seen him.
We can debate in Swahili. It's
Yeah.
a big deal. Huh?
Of course, but he has the right of reply to all this.
Would be trouble.
Honorable Karoli, given what the president said recently, it's not new, is it? So literally, this is a parliament that had set itself up for slaughter since 2013.
You know,
I'm sorry.
Sometimes I wonder whether the number 13 is the curse of our parliament. Actually, I've asked myself that question.
Ole.
That we are the 13th parliament. The number 13 comes with certain matters of superstition. Yeah? But I think I spoke on this issue on the floor of the House. And I also spoke about it here. I said, you see, the president is the #1 consumer of intelligence. So what he says must be taken very seriously. Mm-hmm. But my problem is it should not be what he says. It should be what he has done with the information he has. So that if there are people who are bringing parliament to disrepute by collecting bribes, and the president has that evidence, the best course of action is not mass condemnation of everybody, but is to take action through the investigative agencies under the executive, or by writing to the speaker under Powers and Privileges Act. Yes, so that we deal with this issue. It is the same thing I saw the CS for Health telling us 10.6 billion has been fraudulently claimed from Shah. That means there's somebody who has filed the papers, there's somebody who has cleared the payments, and he knows, but I've not heard him say he has reported to DCI, or he has called in EACC, or he has been, as a minister, a complainant somewhere. So you see, it is not enough to complain or to tell us, yeah, this is what is happening, and to condemn. I think when you're in position of authority and power, your duties go beyond that. So if there's a problem in Parliament, because the President, I believe, cannot just make these statements without having very clear-cut information. If he has information, a member took 10 million shillings on behalf of a committee to pass an act in Parliament. What should have happened? We should have that information as parliamentarians, because we have mechanisms of dealing with it in Parliament. But there are also mechanisms of dealing with it outside of Parliament. So that is where I have a problem, yeah? Because, you know, to condemn a Parliament wholesale, what about the innocent people who now have to carry the tag that we are corrupt? What about those who have just done their work diligently, have not engaged in any of these shenanigans? People who just, you know, focus on what their job is, people's interest, yeah? That is a problem. And then it is not enough just to complain. If you think deeply about it, when the Auditor General brings the report of malfeasance in the executive, the political party leadership in the House, yeah, how do they react to those reports? What do they tell their members in the various committees? You see, this question is deeper. In fact, for me, I would love a very big debate on this. I would like a forum with various people, so we debate this issue, so that we speak to each other the truth. Yeah? Instead of taking one arm of government, I can assure you, in that House, there are very many able, competent, and hardworking members of Parliament across the entire political divide. People who are really dedicated to public service, who are trying their best with all the difficulties we have. Yeah, but we all can't be condemned wholesome. Yeah, that is my problem. And me, if I had evidence, and I would not complain, I would go and present the evidence. Yeah, but to come and call us at that PG meeting, and they're trying to lecture us.
Were you there?
I was there. And in fact, I was the first one to raise my hand. I wanted to speak my mind there on the spot. But then the members just told me, you know, we don't even want to have tea. We don't even want to talk to them. We leave. In fact, what kept us there was the rain. Yes. Because the first misconception was that Senate has no role to oversight counties. Yet the Constitution, Article 96.3, is very clear.
Why is he doing that?
The second one was that we are all corrupt. Yeah?
That's the question.
So you see, you start asking yourself, I mean, we came, I mean, it was completely
What was your initial thinking to discuss?
I wanted to ask the president. Yeah. First, I wanted to point out what the law is.
Ask him now, he's listening.
On the Senate, so that my party leader, if somebody had misled him, we would clarify that issue on the spot. Because it is not, somebody of my party leader's stature cannot make a statement that is not founded on the Constitution. So either somebody misled him, yes, or somebody gave him wrong information. And it is incumbent on us as their followers and people who have been with them for a long time and who respect them and who work for them to point out that. But I wanted to challenge the president. Don't complain, don't whine. We'll leave here, go to EACC, go to DCI, write a letter to the Speaker on the spot. We deal with this issue.
I just am going to have it. Yes. Nelson, Council, this is a good war, is it, for our democracy?
Yes, it is.
It is, because I don't know which American president said this, that nobody has such a good memory to lie in perpetuity. It's reached a point in time where things must fall apart, because the cost of managing this relationship has become too expensive for the president to continue with it. And Karoli Omondi, with tremendous respect, I agree with you. There are so many hard-working, honest members of parliament. But there are also some.
A lot.
A lot who are susceptible. They are pliable. They are elastic. Those are the ones that have been dealing.
Yep.
And I think for the president to come complaining, he must have experienced some difficulty in continued dealing. But it's good. It tells you that the structure that was set up in the Constitution can sustain despite all deliberate efforts to go around it, to countermand it, to contravene it, to violate it. I think it's a good debate. And how I wish that we could have 15 Karoli Omondis just to come out and say, look, Mr. President, you are wrong. We have not received bribes. Tell us who is this that has been receiving bribes. And if you don't tell us who is receiving bribes, you are committing a very serious offense under the laws of the Republic of Kenya and under the Constitution. And we're going to impeach you. And this is not a threat. We're going to do it next day.
Can they?
Yes, they have the powers.
You see, they don't need to succeed. I mean, just a minute.
Yeah.
I posted yesterday that you need to test the outer contours of every formation. A message has to be passed. Let me repeat this. James Orengo moved several motions to censure the president and the vice president those days. Of course, he knew he will not succeed. But the message was passed. At one point in time, he lamented I mean, how come we don't have a vice president for such a long period of time? More quickly appointed a vice president the following evening, isn't it? Yeah, these things have to be done. The only way to know whether a weapon is working is to fire it. You must fire it. So, Karoli, take 15 people, fire this weapon, see if it works.
Yes, I'm going to Samson has.
Yes, I think it's a good war. I think it's a good war, especially in the context of accountability. Because one of the things the president is saying is that these are public resources. And public resources are meant for providing public goods. And we know the public good that are expected. So whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's security, whatever it is. So if only we can have this conversation which is honest, which is good, that action is going to be taken on the malpractices that have been identified. I think the problem that we have, especially from a rights perspective, is that it's a populist conversation which is done for purposes of convenience. And I think we are likely to see possibly this debate about misuse of resources, the capture of parliament, just fizzle out there. It's a debate that needs to be sustained for purposes of accountability. That what do we do with these resources that are meant for members of the public? If it's for providing for health, it's education, if it's roads, can we ensure that it's put to the right use so that people get these services in the context of rights promotion?
Yeah, yes, sir.
The member of Langata, who is a comedian by profession, was elected under the auspices of the Orange Democratic Movement. On the first day he sat on the seat for Langata, he crossed over and went to State House and joined President Ruto. He was in the opposition. The status quo ante before the president's statements must also come out. The parliamentarians were fawning over their leaders. They were being told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and they kowtowed to it. They did not preserve their independence. They did not say, we're not going to do this because this is wrong or it's right. And when the captains of the teams threw them under the bus, they felt the betrayal. This is a betrayal because they told the line. So this is the whole culture that we have of parliamentarians just kowtowing to the executive, kowtowing to the political parties because there's an election coming. And you know, I think that the president and the prime minister did a very brilliant thing, politically speaking. They threw the National Assembly, the parliament under the bus because of the angst that the population in this country have against the institutions, be they in the executive, the judiciary, or the National Assembly, or the parliament. And I think that what they're doing is getting rid of these people because none of them is going to come back. I'd be very surprised. Maybe my good friend will come back from Suba. Of course, he'll come back. But I think 99.9% of the members of parliament are not coming back. And so it was expedient for Mr. Odinga and Mr. Ruto to throw them out, as they say, into the dustbin of history, so that they can start making new lists for the next parliament that has to kowtow to the elections. So I think that if you get men and women of character who go in there, who reject the status quo ante before what Mr. Ruto said, then I think that the leadership will be afraid of this parliamentarians and say, these people are not going to accept this. We have to be careful. The second thing is that there is the intelligence, what's the intelligence committee who comes here?
Nelson Koech.
Nelson Koech. I mean, they have a right to call the guy of the national intelligence and say, what information did you give Mr. Ruto that we are corrupt? Show us. That is publicly stripping the intelligence and saying that you cannot go and give information to the president and not share it with the leadership of the House. That is what happens in the United States. The Senate, the leadership of the Senate, the leadership of the House get up-to-date information from the intelligence services across the board. And that's what should happen with us in the National Assembly. Yeah, and coming to you, Honorable Karoli, state repression has also been in perpetual continuity, is it, even from the old dispensation that we had? And it seems there is no adequate attention for the stoppage of rights violations, especially meted on Kenyans by the state. Yeah, I think that's why I talked about police reforms, because state repression is normally at the contact point between the citizens and mainly the security agencies. I think we need to really pay more attention to sustaining and even deepening the police reforms that were contemplated both at the Serena time under the new constitution and then subsequently through Maraga's commission and the rest of them. It is true there have been a lot of, because of the political tensions that we have had, if you look at the number of deaths or injuries, both to police people as well, police personnel as well as members of the public, in the last 5-6 years, it's been higher than even the pre-levels of repeal of Section 2A. Before Section 2A, there was a lot of political detention and there was a lot of repression. In fact, we need to recognize even there are a lot of people whom, when we talk about the Constitution, we don't mention them. They were the early fighters of the 80s, mainly the academia. You had Professor Anyang' Nyong'o was there, yes. Professor Atieno Odhiambo, Maina wa Kenyati. Ngugi wa Thiong'o was the spiritual head. I think we had so many of them. And the one left who is still active in the political space other than Professor Anyang' Nyong'o is the MP for Kamkunji, Yusuf Hassan. If they tell you the stories, what they went through then, there was a lot of torture, there was a lot of detention, forced exile, and the rest of it. What we now have is real contact between the citizens and the police, leading to a lot of deaths and injuries, both to police personnel. In fact, this compensation mechanism, when it was brought into Parliament, I did ask CS Murkomen whether the police will also be catered for and their families, those who suffered injuries, because you should not just look at one side. I agree. But it is true, we have had a lot of problems. Yeah, a lot of people have died over maandamano over the last 6-7 years. Yeah. If you look at that. And even the issue of transitional justice, the one that you asked, it is not just giving people money. There should be accountability. There should be accountability. Like, it is, otherwise it will look like, okay, we will shoot you and then we will pay you. Okay. Yeah. But there should be many, many questions. And I hope that committee, now that we have LSK there, we have Irungu Horton, that gives us a lot of confidence. And I think the president did the right thing in incorporating those people. Yeah. Now they need to go deeper. Makau Mutua must now leave the talk of what he has been writing and talking about for the last 30 years. We don't expect any shortcuts. Yes. In fact, after he made his presentation, at our PG, I did not have a lot of confidence. But with this new task force that the president appointed, my confidence has gone up. So this is his time to prove himself. Yeah.
And Council, how about what's shaping up to be a mongrel of an outlook where consensus democracy comes in after every electoral cycle? And second, the question of seeking political prescription for already prescribed constitutional medicine. For instance, what's the 10-point agenda and the broad-based framework, which is largely constitutional. Recently, the High Court suspended the formation of that member that includes the EACC, the ODPP, the National Intelligence Service, that are autonomous somewhat in the fight against corruption. I'm talking about the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the criminal justice system by extension. Is this dangerous for our Katiba as well?
It is dangerous for Katiba You know, these people are extremely learned. My education is very basic.
Let's not.
I got the basic education under the Constitution, free education, everything. It's very basic. So I perceive things from a very simplistic prism. We have a social contract in two aspects. One is the Constitution itself, whose rigidity is deliberate and intentional, so that it is protected against dismemberment. And then we have the renewable contract after every 5 years in an election, where we, the people who hold the sovereign power, delegate that authority to the executive and parliament to serve us. You see, the function of governance is simplistic. That is why the greatest kings and emperors of this world were very simplistic in what they were doing. They collected taxes, and the purpose of those taxes was to provide and enable their people get four basic things. One, food, healthcare, education, employment, or an opportunity to earn a living. But we have this mongrel that you talked about. We must discuss power, we must share offices, we must come up with complex phenomenon like SHA to provide for healthcare. You don't need that. You must come up with complex phenomenon like affordable housing to provide shelter. You must come up with nebulous ideas like CBC to enable basic education. You see, it's treachery, it's deceit. And that's why in the medieval times, the people got tired of their kings and emperors and cut off their heads because of deceit. This is deceit. You understand? And we don't live in medieval times anymore, but we still have the deceit of the rulers. And the only way to truncate the period of this deceit is to be affirmative when you go to the ballot. And on our part, we have emphasized and we continue emphasizing the 15 million Gen Z ballot revolution. Cut short this deceit at all levels, at the executive, in parliament, and in judiciary. You know, yesterday, I filed a precedent-setting suit against 2 judges. It's never been filed before on earth, where we want to hold the judges personally accountable for violating the Constitution in the making of the decisions. You understand? You know, change has never been achieved on this earth but by people who are often crazy. We need the people of Kenya to be extremely crazy, demand a reset in all those 3 arms of government. That is the only way in which we can deal with this problem whose solution often appears elusive.
Are you one among the many crazy people you're seeking?
I mean, it's not in the realm of conjecture.
Yeah.
People say that I'm mad. Yeah. I do not want to dispute them. But it's my madness that enables me to get things done. Okay. A normal person cannot do some of the things we do. You need to be crazy, extremely crazy.
Okay.
And I beseech the 15 million Gen Z who are part and parcel of our revolution to be extremely crazy, to be insane, and do things that will change and scare the status quo.
Okay. Yes, say Samson.
I wanted to delve slightly onto the issue of compensation that Honorable Karoli has spoken about. I think one, it's a good gesture by the president that he's saying that harm has happened and we need to compensate people. But there are a couple of questions that we need to ask ourselves. Number one is we had a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission that was set up in 2008. Of course, went around the country and collected statements from over 40,000 people. People that had suffered harm across on various areas. So victims of police brutality, extrajudicial executions, land injustices, from the time we got independence to 2008. That report, it is yet to be implemented by government up to now. So where do we place it? I think that is one. Number two, when you look at the so-called task force that's been put by the president, it's going to do its work in 120 days. So the question we need to ask ourselves is 120 days enough for it? I think number 3 is, if you look at the composition, which I think it's fine, but what are some of the mechanisms that it's going to put in place to ensure that people are not left behind? So that the focus is not just on police brutality, but the focus is also on other violations that people have suffered over the period. Because I think one of the things we are going to do is we are going to go against some of the principles provided under Article 10 on issues of discrimination and leaving people behind. That we are going to have people that suffered harm that are not going to be considered. But I think finally is that we need to look at this in a larger context. So the issues of public apology, issues of non-repetition, issues of accountability for human rights violations, and issues of the rule of law. So that we don't just run with one aspect of giving people, for lack of better term, a few millions, but we don't speak about accountability. We don't speak about reparation, memorialization, and all that.
Yeah. So let's sample the feedback, and I give you your closing remarks here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. The first one, we are pulling that up for you, is from Sir Nixon, who says, the Constitution recognizes culture as the basis of the nation and promotes all forms of national and cultural expressions. Culturally, national days are public holidays. Why not express Katiba Day as a national holiday? Lekishon says, imagine a Katiba Day in Kenya where as a national holiday like Norway's May 17th, where children and the youth parade in honor of their constitution. True patriotism grows when leaders uphold the law and people can trust them, not when the youth asking for justice are silenced. He means extrajudicial killings. Bob Otieno says 15 years down the line since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, there's nothing much to celebrate because politicians have hijacked it at the expense of Kenyans. Okelo Mwalimu says the proclamation of Katiba Day by the President is such a welcome move. If properly observed, this move will go a long way in inculcating constitutional concerns and patriotism amongst the populace. However, mtukufu rais angeifanya iwe public holiday, angecheza kama yeye. Remy Butia says this day is a powerful reminder of the collective duty to obey, preserve, protect and implement the Constitution, fostering national unity, justice, equity and prosperity for all Kenyans. And the last one, Lekishon says, 15 years on, Kenya's constitution has reshaped democracy and governance, yet lack of political goodwill blocks full implementation. If applied to the letter and spirit, Kenya could shine as a true beacon of democracy beyond Africa. Yes, Honorable Karole Omondi.
Closing remarks.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I think what I would say on this Katiba Day is that to the young people, let us always speak truth to power. I think it is the duty that we have to help protect and preserve our Constitution. And to all Kenyans, I mean, the Americans say eternal vigilance is a price of liberty. We must all, at all times, be vigilant and active in protecting our Constitution. In fact, if you look at the American motto, pluribus unum, out of many, one, I think we need to borrow something there. Out of our many nations, we are one Kenya. And to my fellow politicians, what I would like to really call out our people to focus on is this praise and worship mentality that is so pervasive in our political processes and in our political parties. I call it the Shakahola mentality. I think we really need to, as politicians, we really need to get away from it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ahmed, briefly.
Well, I think that I will pay tribute to the men and women who lost their lives for the Constitution of Kenya, the ones who went to detention, the founding fathers who brought the constitutions that we have. And I believe that it's important to remember those people because they're the ones who have made the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not perish from the face of our republic, to paraphrase Abe Lincoln. And I think that it is very important that this country pays tribute to those men and women, because without them, I don't think that we would have a constitution. Can you imagine Mr. Ruto today, President Ruto, without this constitution? We would not be speaking here. So I pay tribute to them, and I've played a small part, Karoli played a small part, and Harvey and everybody played a little part. And together, we can preserve the dignity of this republic.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Katiba Day must have meaning. It must have meaning not because the president has proclaimed it. He needed not proclaim it. It is a day due to us, effective the day we promulgated the Constitution. We, the people, are the ultimate sovereign. Yep. The executive, the judiciary, and parliament have desecrated the Constitution. Look at the cartoon on page 14 of the Standard today. These cartoonists always think the same way I think. We need a reset.
Is he as crazy as you?
I think slightly less. We need a reset. We need a reset so that the social contract contained in the Constitution
Thank you.
and the 5-year contract that we give our leaders have meaning. And we can only do that through the 15 million Gen Z ballot revolution.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry.
Register, prepare to vote.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ayub. I think two things. Number one is that fidelity to the Constitution and the respect for the rule of law should be the rallying call for all of us at different levels. But I think finally is that let's use the document, which is the Constitution, as a guiding document to protect, promote, and respect human rights. Yeah. I think with that we'll be good to go as a people.
And much appreciated, gentlemen, for your time here on the broadcast. Asanteni sana. And it's a happy day here to mark a befitting birthday for our Constitution. Samson Otie Omondi, thanks for your time. Assistant Director with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Council Nelson Harvey with us also this morning in the studio, formerly the President of the Law Society, and Ahmed Haji, Political and Governance Commentator. Karoli Mondi represents the people of Suba South, also chairs the Constitution Oversight and Implementation Committee of the National
important committee.
Assembly.
Asante sana.
Thank
Much appreciated.
you, Ayub.
It's 8 on the clock. We have been here for 1 hour 40 minutes. Thank you and have a lovely morning. And thanks to you too for working up with us here. Happy Katiba Day. Good morning.